welcome folks, fearless filmmaker event here.
Roll sound. Cameras rolling.
If you find yourself in a dark room where men are being punished by a 36D dominatrix and Russ Meyer posters adorn the wall, you're probably in John Irvin's head. And if you don't have a stomach for the irreverent, the politically charged, and the psychosexual, you should probably turn back. Our guest today is John Irvin, and today he's going to talk to us about his journey of filmmaking that started in 1998. And ever since, he's been producing, writing, and directing those films, and is now working with a local magazine as a writer. Please welcome to Butter City, John Irvin. Welcome, sir.
Well, thank you.
We've had the opportunity to do interviews before on another show, and it's always cool. I love looking at your clips. I love looking at the full length of the features that you've done. The Russ Meyer influence is right there. I know that. I think it was in Vixen Highway. Which movie has a character named Russ Meyer?
That movie, yeah, it does. That was played
does.
by my brother, who played a cop in the movie named Russ Meyer. I did all these references to Russ Meyer's movies and the actresses and characters who populated them.
Just to give people a preview of what your work is like, and then let's talk about who Russ Meyer was real quick. He started out kind of as a photographer, World War II.
Right, he was a newsreel photographer in World War II, and he devoted the rest of his career to a fetish that he had for women with very large breasts.
Right.
There's no other way to put it.
No.
And by and large, that's what his films focused on. But unlike a lot of other what you might call erotic or nudie filmmakers, his films are really brilliantly done. Really, he was a great photographer. He worked with a lot of great screenwriters who had a lot of great sense of humor, and his most famous screenwriter was the critic Roger Ebert, who wrote Beyond the Valley of the Dolls.
And yeah, his film is always populated with these naturally busty women, and it's interesting because you're right. He doesn't just reduce it to just kind of kind of some booby movie. It's actually well shot, and he had gotten some of his crews from his World War II days when he was in the field. He recruited some of his co-workers
his old
in the
army
field.
buddies.
His old army buddies. He was making movies.
He was devoted to them for the rest of his life. He'd always have reunions with them each year of his life until, the last few years of his life, he suffered from Alzheimer's, and couldn't do much of anything. But until then, he was devoted. Some people say that the happiest years of his life were in World War II, and that he was a miserable person to work with on his film shoots. He wouldn't think so, because his films were a lot of fun to watch, but apparently they were just nightmares to work on, because he was just a crabby, militaristic tyrant.
So, I mean, coming from that, let's look. The parallels stylistically are there in your films. You make no secret about it. I mean, it's not like you're just
Vixen Highway, was the most direct tribute to it, because the title is taken from a movie he did called Vixen, and he did 2 other movies with the word Vixen somewhere in the title. So that's the direct. And Vixen Highway is a tribute to his 2 most famous films, Faster Pussycat, Kill Kill, and Beyond the Valley of the Dolls. And it's kind of like a hybrid of the 2. I have 3 women. The 3 lead women are very similar to the women in Faster Pussycat, and there's a guy named Bobby Barzell who's a rock star who needs a liver transplant, and there's a donor liver that's a MacGuffin in the film, and Bobby Barzell, the rock star, is kind of sort of the long-lost brother of a character named Ronnie Barzell in Beyond the Valley of the Dolls. And Roger Ebert has not yet threatened to sue me for appropriating the name.
Do you beyond the style points, do you function in a similar way? Did you have people from way back when that you've been keeping with you, crew-wise? Do you like to work with the same crew?
No, the only person who has worked on all 3 of my movies crew-wise is a guy named Ron Johnson, who did the sound in all 3 of my films. And he's as a boom operator, and he's a filmmaker.
Frozen State films?
Yeah, Frozen State films,
right.
And he does everything. I mean, his name seems to be attached with every local indie production. But otherwise, no, for one reason or another, I haven't really worked with a lot of the same people twice because a lot of them move out of state, a lot of them just disappear, and some and a few of them.
People work with you when they leave state or disappear.
Or they disappear, or you know, we part company. You know.
Oh, okay. Okay.
There's that too.
You're not killing them. That's good.
And no. So far as I, nobody's died or been killed. At least so far as I know.
Well done. Your first film, if I'm right, was Maiden Berlin, and it's also kind of the namesake of your production company.
Right, right.
Let's take a look at a clip from Maiden Berlin.
Okay, sure.
Damn it. Come on. It's like something other than shit. I don't believe it. I think this thing is broken.
Perhaps you're playing too limited a repertoire. Try some older songs.
What the hell difference would that make? Oh, good thing you're back. I was just about ready to give up on this thing.
They want cheese balls, pineapple brandy, and 12 Mahler brows up in room 412.
Holy if they want to get that wasted, they should just go down to Dr. Dietrich's low-cost liquors down the street.
I know what you mean, Lottie. These people are intent on destroying themselves. Why don't they just take rat poison?
Huh?
Or drink gallons of HIV-infected fluids and save themselves the effort of fornicating with...
Hey, man. If you want to save souls, go upstairs. I got me my...
Wait.
What?
That sounds like a good idea. Why don't you let me take care of this order for you? It'll be a great opportunity for me to reach out to these poor souls.
Yeah, sure. Okay. Just make sure you give me the tip.
Lottie, if you didn't have such an obscene, bile-spewing mouth, I'd marry you.
Oh, that was good stuff. That's the lighting is really cool and they're very dramatic. It's kind of a, I think, fair to say a trademark, or you like that style? That
yeah,
look?
I love that style. That film was more kind of a loose tribute to expressionist cinema of the 1920s, even though this film takes place in the present day.
It's about the Democratic Party.
Oh, it's about a
political intrigue.
Liberal senator who is involved with who meets a mysterious woman for an extramarital affair at his hotel room. And the funny thing about this movie, it preceded the Monica Lewinsky scandal with Clinton by about 6 months. So it was strangely prescient of that. You know, I always consider the Lewinsky scandal the thing that helped George W. Bush steal the 2000 election.
Sure.
So.
Yeah, it became a moral thing.
Right, right.
You know, I think you've said before that this film was a tribute to the Weimar period of the 1920s.
Yeah.
And I always think it's interesting. You talk about your references and some of your influences, and they're very deep and rich within the fabric of what film critics love to talk about and write about. And then you use very basic. You know, you've got these street kind of road movie, busty, very. You go from very intellectual to very, very physical, and your passion for a film, and you meld those two together. When those two things come together in your head, I mean, what is that like with that creative process? Do you find yourself leaning more toward one or the other? Do you feel like you have two masters? Because they are so different.
Well, the main master is the one that says, well, you've only got X amount of dollars and X types of locations to shoot in. So if I had the opportunity to shoot an actual tribute to the Weimar expressionist period, I would have set it up to take place in the 1920s, maybe even shoot it in Berlin or some facsimile thereof in Europe, and have it look like Cabaret, the movie, the Bob Fosse movie or something like that. So basically I decided, okay, well, I don't have that much money and I have to shoot in Minneapolis. Why don't we do a film that takes place in contemporary Minneapolis but give it that kind of feel? So what we did was to set up the lighting so it would have that stark feel of black and white, and 16 millimeter film really brought that out. And
I was going to ask you what you shot on.
So it's just, and the same thing with my Russ Meyer tribute. It would have been ideal to have that take place, say, in the 60s or 70s, but we still couldn't do that. So I decided to set it in present day Minnesota, but have everyone dress sort of like it was the 60s and have the color scheme kind of look like a 60s film.
And that was the film you're talking about is Vixen Highway. And like, let's talk about your relationship with money as far as, do you say, well, I got this much money, I'm going to write a script backwards? Or is it...
Yeah, that's how I do it. And I try to write most of my scripts with the idea of shooting on a very low budget. I make occasional exceptions, you know, in the hopes of getting some major funding. But yeah, since I've primarily had to resort to doing self-funding, as they call it, which means, you know, under $500,000, I think that's kind of the bar, and it's way under that.
Yeah.
It's more like a 5-figure sum.
I think the rule is never, ever, ever use your own money, except sometimes you have to.
Yeah, well, I have to. That's
kind of the way
situation, because my scripts are so out there. They're the references. They're not high concept scripts. They're not about. But
in a way, they are. The original look and so much of what you're bringing to it is, but then the action of the script is lower concept. That's what I was going to ask you. How far into your pitch do you get when you're talking to investors?
Oh, wow. You know, and that's the other thing. I never talk to investors. I don't know who they are. I've occasionally talked with people who are script readers or connected with, you know, maybe not major studios, but sort of medium budget studios. Like there was a guy in Chicago who was interested in doing a production of Vixen Highway about a year before I ended up doing it myself. And he loved the script, and he loved the idea, but he couldn't get anybody in his studio to greenlight it because they felt it just wasn't going to make any money. And I think that's part of the problem, why you and I had to kind of do a little primer on Russ Meyer, because my script is so dedicated to him, and nobody under 40 knows who he is.
So the references would just seem to be references to nothing. They seem to be strange stylistic choices.
People would approach Vixen Highway like it was, what was the big movie similar then to like Charlie's Angels, you know, movies like that, or The Craft or something like that.
But these are three women who...
Yeah, and that's the only
truly kick-ass
connection. So
Charmed.
Right.
So the clip we're going to watch next is going to be from Pro Inhibition, which is a movie about an alcoholic man.
Right. It's about I thought it was a fascinating idea. What is somebody who runs a treatment center, who runs a treatment center, you know, and generally people who run and operate them have had histories of substance abuse themselves, falls off the wagon and secretly is drinking while he's running this treatment center. And
that is...
I combined, it was a combination of this whole thing about, you know, recovery memoirs. You know, lately, I think this film was actually prescient of the last couple of years with all these celebrities who are going to rehab.
Yeah.
We now have a show called Celebrity Rehab, and you know what happened to Heath Ledger and people like that, Amy Winehouse, you know, all these celebrities who are, you know, we hear about their substance abuse as it's happening, even before they, you know, come clean and confess that they have a substance abuse problem. So I was combining that with the films that were based on the works of Philip K. Dick, who himself was, you know, a pretty serious drug addict, and he wrote about 100 novels in his very short lifespan. And you know, and there were all these adaptations of his work, like the most famous of which is Blade Runner, and then there was the Tom Cruise movie Minority Report. So it was again a combination of two different things that kind of intrigued me.
And that is a pretty antiseptic description compared to what we're going to see in the clip.
Yeah, and
this
then
is
there's
a culminating
dominatrixes factor
left
into
that
this.
part out.
So should we watch the clip and then I can explain the dominatrixes?
Let's do that.
Okay.
No! Big Dr. Dick should stick around. After all, he desperately needs our help. And maybe hearing the prayer might be just the thing to get his Irish down!
Biff, please, let me just
In fact, let's go one better. Let's recite the 12 steps of AA. All 12 of them. And let's make him...
Stop!
Biff, no!
Are you out of your mind? I'll send you to...
Yeah, so you send us all to re-employment camp. So what? This is too much fun to pass up. Care to start with the first step?
Don't listen to Biff, he's crazy. We admit that we are powerless over alcohol and that our lives have become unmanageable. God, you're all in
ruin your chances and
We came to believe that a power greater than ourselves could be...
All right, I'm calling the cops.
As your counselor, I'd strongly advise against it.
We've made a decision to turn our will and our lives over to the care of God. We understood it.
All right, let him go. He's got the point.
Nothing doing, mistress. We started something, we're gonna finish it. And my job is to remind this maggot that we all made a fearless, searching moral inventory of ourselves.
No shit, because at least we gave to God and to ourselves and to another human being the exact day from our wrongs.
We're darn good and ready to have the good Lord remove all these defects of character. We humbly ask him to remove our shortcomings.
If you're just joining us, you're in Dan's Den of Psychosexuality. I'm kidding. You're actually rejoining us in Butter City. We're talking with director John Irvin, looking at his film Inhibition. I just love that scene where they're doing the 12 steps and beating up the guy.
Yeah, I think that was based on a dream, and sometimes dreams can lead to scripts and even films. So in this case, yeah, I had a dream. I was in a recovery group, and it was full of dominatrixes and
it's funny you
beating
said
up on me, and so I thought that's perfect. And that might have been the germ of the idea for this film, you know, that combined the Philip K. Dick with the recovery
themes.
You know.
But it's funny you referred to it as a dream and not a nightmare.
Yeah, I don't know. Well, I suppose it was a nightmare, and the production of this film was something of a nightmare.
Yeah, let's talk about that. You said there
was
was a lot of, you don't want to name names, which is probably best.
No.
I know, I would appreciate that on some films.
No.
I've worked on. Let's talk about some of the madness.
Oh, you know, I would just say generally there was a certain amount of actual substance abuse. Not by me, I'll just say that for the record, but, you know, I won't say whether it was cast or crew.
We won't judge you.
Yeah, or anything like that. And that isn't fair because the people involved had a problem, but unfortunately we almost got in trouble. I got in trouble with the owner of the location, which I can't even say now, where we shot because the owner was rightfully very upset, and we had to kind of smooth things out so we wouldn't get sued or get hauled into jail. But you know, it was, and there were a lot of other problems, and that, you know, 90% of the people I work with on my films I get along really well with. One guy put it best, who worked on Vixen Highway. He said, "John, you're easy like Sunday morning." Unfortunately, it was a man who said that, not a woman. But I don't think it was meant in that sense. I think it meant that, you know, I get along really well with almost everyone, except there's those 3, 4, or 5 people. I don't know, there's just a vibe. It doesn't work. They don't like the way I'm running the production. They feel that they're entitled to work on a, you know, higher budget.
Well, let's take a look at a clip from Vixen Highway.
Okay.
You see, it's always been my belief to settle things in a friendly kind of way. You know, at the bottom, most people, they don't mean to break the law. It just happens. Now, as far as these little things here, I'm gonna keep your documents right here in my BVDs till we're done. Yeah!
Gee, you mean you're not going to show me how much authority you've got?
Well, now that all depends on how much commitment and confidence I can see in you, little darling. Oh, your Greek friend's back.
Greek? And where are you from? England?
No, Kentucky, Fern Creek, Kentucky, actually. Yes, after 6 years of chasing purse snatchers and catching shoplifters, I went for that opening in the Minnesota Highway Patrol, yeah, where I could really serve the public, you know. But between you and me, the main reason I come up here was to find out how you Midwest girls warm up those ice cold nights. Yeah.
Gee, and I thought you were a by the book kind of guy.
Well, and sometimes I take that book and I just...
Elroy! Will you set this girl straight? Here I am, about to rustle me up a burger. She won't take off. Hey, she's a Louisiana girl.
All I need, officer, is for this big, strong nephew of yours to get me a cool drink from the container over there.
Oh, hell, now that don't sound like too much to ask. Now's the time. Be a gentleman, right? And get that lady a cool drink from that cooler right over there.
Well, all right. But I want to see some on you when I get back. Cooler. You got to excuse my nephew. I'll bring him up here from all the way back home to see the important work I am doing here, and he doesn't even have the common courtesy to follow local custom. I tell you, that boy is a long way from respecting women. Now, let's get down to business. Which one of you ladies gonna first? What the hell's the matter with you, Scooby? All right. Y'all stay here. I'll check this out here now. What's the problem here? All right. Let me check this out here. Oh, my dear sweet Lord. Oh. Oh, yeah.
What's the matter, Sonny? Never seen a human liver before?
Liver? Oh, hi. What are you people? Satan worshippers?
No, Scoop. We're fur trappers. Next time you better bring some meat to the barbecue.
Wow, take a look in the Vixen Highway with Charles Hubble.
Great actor.
Great actor. You see him everywhere now in commercials.
Yeah, he's in a movie that sounds kind of interesting called Midnight Chronicles. It sounds like an erotic feature. I assume it's not, but I love the title.
Yeah, and they had a lot of like horses, and they shot out in the country, costumes. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Looks good.
Well, maybe I'm right.
So he's he's still around. And obviously he's working and he's fun to work with.
He's a great actor, and everybody in that film was really good. That Vixen Highway, unlike the other film we were talking about, we didn't really have any serious problems, substance abusive wise or otherwise, personality. Everybody got along really well. Again, it was one of those things where probably weather and budget were the only constraints, but they're not necessarily all that different from what happened to Russ Meyer, because Russ Meyer often shot his films in wooded outdoors areas because it was usually cheaper to do so there, and he could also get away with certain things that he wanted to include in his films a little more easily there.
Where do you think, with the obvious references and the footprint kind of Russ Meyer has in your stuff, where do you begin and where does Russ Meyer end? Where do you think you make your individual?
Well, I think, I go beyond just devoting. I don't have a particular fetish that I am devoting my life to. I don't think so. Some people might. I think my fetish is more about certain types of movies, midnight movies, which I think all of these films and a lot of my other scripts are like. I always had a fascination with that kind of netherworld of cinema that's, not recognized by the industry. Doesn't really win Oscars or anything like that. So I move beyond where Russ Meyer kind of ended by exploring a lot of other subjects that have nothing to do with sex or busty women or anything like that. A lot of people said that if Russ Meyer had developed an interest in other subjects, he might have been a great filmmaker, because he had a lot of incredible talent as a photographer, visual style, and creative style, but he just couldn't seem to get out of this hang up. I don't know what it was.
He loved it.
Yeah.
Tell us, if we want to read news, check out your blog, see what's going on, where do we go to check that out?
Yeah, my official website is Irvin Flix, spelled ERVINFLIX, and it should be appearing somewhere on the screen here. So it's irvinflix.com. And it's a site that I set up about a year ago. I built it myself. I developed some web design skills, so I built a site just devoted to all my films and all my production activities. I used to have a site, devoted to Vixen Highway and one devoted to Inhibition that were built by other people, and it was kind of a mess, telling people which place to go. So
now we can get everything in one spot?
Yeah, so everything's in one.
It's our
one-stop
sexual spot.
And then there's so when you go on the main page of the site, when you look at it, you immediately assume it's a porno site, because I have posters for all three of my films which emphasize the sexual element, and so I can imagine anyone who does not have any idea of what I do, assumes I'm just doing X-rated stuff. And my stuff would probably be at worst PG-13.
That's what I was going to say.
Somewhere between PG-13 and R.
Yeah, maybe R for language.
That's about it, because there's no nudity. And that's probably something that's going to dissuade some people from buying copies of my films. But no nudity. It's all, and no serious violence. Actually, no blood. I think we had a little bit of blood in Prohibition.
Yeah, I bet that was real.
Right. It was mine mostly.
Right.
But yeah, and my site also has news about my upcoming productions, which includes a documentary which is primarily going to be about the Republican National Convention a couple blocks away at the XL Center in September. I'm also going to see if I can do it about Michelle Bachmann's re-election campaign. Michelle Bachmann is currently my favorite politician. She's my new Vixen. And she doesn't even know it yet.
She's interesting.
And she probably wouldn't like my movies, I don't think so.
Well, hopefully she's watching right now.
Right. So, and also I'll mention, in case we air before this happens, I'm doing a show for the Fringe Festival, and that'll be my live theater debut. At least my live theater debut as a director and writer. I did act many, many years ago when I had a full head of hair. So.
All right, John. Well, that's all the time we have today, but I want to thank you for coming by. We'll have you back as things get going. Otherwise, we'll be sure to check out your website at
irvinflix.com. Okay.
We want to thank you for watching Butter City. If you have a comment or an idea for a show, send it in. Check us out at www.buttercity.com. Thanks. We'll see you.
Support for Butter City is provided by